Hey guys, what's up? So I feel there's a lack of good fantasy lately, where the last fantasy thing that I kind of like saw or consumed was something called Altered Carbon, which was really good, and they did that on the first season, and then they did the second season, and it really wasn't good at all. And that really was weird because the first one was great, and then the second season was horrible. It wasn't even the same thing. But there's really not a lot of fantasy lately. Like, there hasn't been any good fantasy coming out lately. And I think the reason for it is because the market has completely changed with the disappearance of video stores, where you can get, you used to be able to get a videotape for a VCR, and then they had, they changed it to DVDs. So you could still go to a video store and get a DVD and watch it, and watch a fantasy movie or something like that. But the thing is about what happened to that was that they got rid of the video store, and so now there's a lack of any really good fantasy, and the video stores had a really good selection of fantasy. And now because that's gone, there's not a lot of fantasy. And you might say, well, the video store is not necessary anymore because now we have Netflix and we have streaming videos and stuff like that. The thing about streaming videos and Netflix is that the movies that are on streaming video and Netflix make absolutely no money. It's the same thing as albums that no longer are in record stores and CD stores. They're on streaming, they're on like iTunes and they're on Spotify, but they make absolutely no money for the artist. And what was great about video stores, whether that was VCR or DVD, and it doesn't really matter because they were both good quality videos. I mean, they were both good quality movies, whether that was like VCR or DVD. The DVD wasn't better quality. The only difference with the DVD was the Laserdisc was you didn't have to rewind it. That was the only difference. There's like no real difference between the two technologies. And so what happened was, a movie would be released in the theaters, and it didn't really matter how it did in the theaters. It didn't really matter like if all the theaters had that movie, or if like one theater in one city had that movie. It didn't matter because those movies after the theater went to DVD or VHS, and they went basically into the video stores. So the people that owned that movie, who made that movie, were able to still make money on the video, whether people would buy the video directly from the people that made the movie, or they would rent the video from the video stores, and the video stores obviously had the license to rent that movie out. So those movies were making a lot of money despite them not being in the theaters. And so what happens when you make movies just for the theater is that they have to be these big budget, like big, huge movies that have to make millions of dollars, like $100 million in the first week, in order to be relevant enough for the people making these movies to make them. And so what they used to do is they would make these B movies, or they would make movies that were not like huge. They were not like those gigantic big budget movies. They were like smaller budget movies. And what happened was they would release it in, if it wasn't like big in the theaters, maybe some theaters had it, and sometimes no theaters had it, or maybe like a few of them had it, and then it went direct to VHS or DVD. And then what would happen was once it went direct to DVD or VHS, it would be in the video stores, because it doesn't cost the video stores anything extra than to have an extra movie. It's like they have the capacity to have thousands of movies that you can rent from a video store, and every time you rented that movie, it was like $2 for that movie. So the movie would make part of that, the video store would make part of that. you would watch it and then you would return it. And so, but now it's like, it's either in the theaters or it's streaming. And streaming means that basically the streaming services have the right to show this movie, and the people that license the movie make very, very little money on it. So if it didn't do well in the theaters, it's not even gonna be like, the streaming movies are just, they're not even like, not all movies that come out go to streaming, right? And a lot of them no one's even heard of. And so it's hard to find the movie that you've never heard of, because if you ever try to find something on the internet or browse on the internet, it's difficult to browse on the internet because you can only see like a few movies at a time. Like if you go to a video store, you can browse, you can watch, you can look at a bunch of like weird, like, you know, the DVD covers and the name of the movie and the DVD cover, and you would browse by like category, like science fiction, fantasy, horror, thriller, mystery, whatever, like special interest. They even had that. And so you would sit there and, you know, they would be like, there would be these panels and you would flip through the panels, and when you saw like artwork that looked like something you liked, you looked at it, you read the back of it, and it was only like $2. So you were like, okay, this looks cool, I'll buy it, you know, and then you buy it. I'll buy it, I'll rent it, and then you rent it, you watch it, and then you return it. And it usually, like, you know, if it's good, then you had a good time. If it's not good, then it was only $2, and it was probably good to some extent. It probably wasn't all bad. You know, if it had like the cover that you liked and the name of it that you liked, it could have been a bad movie, but it would still be fun to watch. And usually, like, it, you know, in my experience, they were just good. Like, most of them were good. Like, you would very rarely get something that completely you hated, you know? And if you hated it, well, it was only $2. Like, so what? Like, the next day, you can go and get a different DVD or VHS or whatever it was. But now, it's like, either the only way it's gonna make money is if it's in the theaters, which is not going to happen unless it's a big Hollywood thing, a big Hollywood film. Then it's going to be in the theaters. And you know what? When you go to the theater and the movie sucks, and they're going to tell you the movie's good, like, no matter what. Like, they're going to always tell you the movie's good until like the Rotten Tomatoes come in and whatever. But they're always going to tell you the movie's good. And only like, and it's weird because, and even if you listen to people that actually watch the movie and they say it sucked, not necessarily everyone's gonna think it sucked. A lot of people are gonna think it's good also, but some people are gonna like it, some people are gonna hate it, you know. But if the movie really, really was bad, but the only way to know is to try it out, right? However, when you go to the theater to watch the movie, it's $20 just for the ticket. It's another $10 for popcorn and a drink, you know. And it's another, like, whatever to get to the theater. And it's like, and it's even like, there's not a lot of theaters, so you've got to get to the theater, get to wherever theater is next to you or nearby. And that's extra, and that's extra money. So it's very, very expensive. And you have to go to the theater when it's playing. So you can't just, you know, go to the theater anytime. You have to go at a certain time, get your ticket, get everything, then sit there and watch this movie. And if it sucks, well, you just wasted like $35 on, you know, like on something you wanted to like. Whereas if you rented this movie, in the, you know, like, because usually like the movies that you rent, they will like they're not like, they're gonna, like, they'll be in the theater, and like 2 months later, after they're not in the theater anymore, they're in the video store, and you rent it and it'd be $2. And okay, so back in that time, like, it wasn't $20 for the movie, it was like $10 for a movie, and it was like $5 for popcorn and a drink and whatever, so it was a little bit less. But right now, they don't, there's no, maybe now, like, with it would have been like maybe $4 to rent it, or $5 or $4.99 or something like that. It was not expensive to rent a movie. You were able to like rent one pretty much like almost every day or any day you wanted to see a movie. And so, and you didn't have to buy movies or anything like that. So, and also the video store gave you a chance to browse. Like, it would give you a chance to like browse, and you can't do this on the internet. You can't browse, because if you go like, if you browse on Netflix and you go to, I want to look at fantasy movies or sci-fi movies or just fantasy movies, right? If you browse on Netflix and you're like, I want to see fantasy movies, it's just going to give you a bunch of titles, and you could likely like watch those because they are like with it, you know, in the, you could watch what's on there because they are like, they're like in the streaming thing. But even though like their capacity is maybe 50 to 100 movies of fantasy, you know, where, and those, and a lot of them are like crappy movies, which are not good and should not even be on there. And they're just, it's just on there to, it's just on there to give you, to make it look like there's a selection. There's not a lot of selection. If you go to those movies that like, the random movies on Netflix and browse and like click on watching any of those, you can't watch them for more than like 10 minutes or like 15, 20 minutes or whatever it is, you know, or half an hour at the most. Most of those movies are so bad that you can't even get into it. It's just not even a thing. And the movies that are good, Netflix has them, but they have them on DVD. And they still have that service that you can rent it for, what is it, $5 now or so? Oh no, you got to be in the, you know, the subscription, right, or something. So it's an extra like $5 a month or something like that, or $10, whatever it is, $10 a month, and you get to rent like one movie at a time. So you order the movie, it arrives to your house like a couple of days later, and then you are able to send it back and then order another one. And they send you the disc, you know. But the thing is this, like, that is really inconvenient because your video store was like on the corner or down the block from your house. There were video stores, honestly, like everywhere. And it was only like down the street or like, you know, near your house or something like that, you know? And so, like, yeah, so it takes a day to get to rent the movie, or 2 days. Like, you order it and it will seriously take him 2 days to, like, you shouldn't have to, like, if you went to Blockbuster, you didn't have to wait 2 days to rent the thing. You go to Blockbuster, right? Or you go to the video store, you rent the movie, and then you get it right away. You take it home and you watch it. And then after you're done watching it, like the next day, they usually let you keep it for a day or two, right? And so like the next day or the day after, usually bring it back and usually like rent another one. Or if you don't, it doesn't matter because the video store is usually down the street from you. It's like a few blocks away from your house at the most. And they've got like they had really good selections. You know, people would make movies based on that. They would be in the theater, make whatever money it is in the theater, and then be forever in a video store, like forever. Like the only way that they would not be in a video store is if the video store thought it was so bad, or it got, or nobody rented it, which was never the case, because someone would always rent it if it looked cool. Like it had a good title, it had a good like artwork on the front, people would rent it. You know, even if like, and usually, unless it was like really, really bad and people were just saying, I don't believe, you know, I don't believe I rented this, it was just really bad. Just like, why do you even have this movie? You know, but that never happened. Like no movie was that bad that people wouldn't rent it. And it wasn't like, it was only $2, so it's like, okay, so you watch the bad movie, you know, the next time you go, you're probably going to get a much better movie for the same price. And the thing is that most of the time, yeah, it was hit or miss, right? But most of the time, when you went to a video store, most of the time the movie would actually be surprisingly good. And it didn't have to be a good, well-made movie. It didn't have to be anything like special about it. And also, what was cool about that was you didn't have to go to the theater to watch movies. You just wait a couple of months and they'd be on DVD. And then you would wait another few months and it would be on HBO. Usually, you know. But you know, like, but at the time, like, HBO was like the only cable. But afterwards, I mean, after a while, there was cable and there were video stores, and there were just like, there weren't a lot of like movie channels. There was HBO and there was a few more, you know, Showtime or whatever. And so the thing is that, like, because the video store is gone, and the reason they say the reason the video stores are gone because they're obsolete. There's no reason for them. We can get streaming movies, you know. But the thing about that is, like, you don't get to browse. You don't get to see all of the movies that are out there. Like, if you don't know what the name of the movie is, right, or whatever, you're never gonna find it, you know. If you don't know, like, what the name of the movie is, you won't find it, because you have to actually search for the title of the movie in order to find it. Otherwise, it's completely obscure and no one knows it's there. And then, of course, there's the popular movies that people know about, and those are the ones that are a little bit more, like, in the forefront. You know, like, people know about them. They were in the theater, they did well, they went to streaming, and then people are watching it on streaming, or, you know, whatever that is. But now it's like, to make a movie, it has to be good in the theater. You know, it has to succeed in the theater if you're going to make any money on it. Because if it goes straight to streaming, you're not going to make any money from it, because people don't make money from streaming services. They made money from renting out their DVD, but they don't make any money for streaming. Like musical artists don't make money from streaming, and movies don't make any money from streaming. So it doesn't make any sense, like, for someone to make a movie and then have it on streaming. It makes more sense for someone to make a movie and then put it on YouTube or something like that, where people can watch it, you know, or whatever it is, you know, because that'll probably make more money than what they're making on streaming. Like, YouTube is they will probably make more money with, like, a good movie on YouTube that gets a lot of views than if they went to streaming, because you know, I'm not exactly sure what the exact contract is, but I know for a fact that the music industry makes no money from streaming at all, like pennies. And they only make money by selling their own CDs themselves. And with movies, you know, like, they're not actually selling the CD, they're giving someone the rights to stream it, and I guess they get some money per view, but it's probably like not a lot of money for, you know, the amount of views it's gonna get, especially if it's not a popular movie and no one knows it's there. Like, no one knows it's on the streaming thing, it's on the streaming service, right? If a video store, you know, got the rights to rent the movie, they would basically pay the people that made the movie for the rights, and then that would happen because there were a lot of video stores. Then the movie would make some money from the video stores renting out their movie, because there were just a lot of video stores. You know, it would be like every city had hundreds. Nationally, I don't know, hundreds of thousands Different countries would have, like everywhere in the world, there were like a lot of these, you know, and if you had your movie going international and all over the world, you know, it would just be a lot. It was like a lot. But then if you look at like Netflix, it's like one company paying the movie people instead of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of video stores all over the world, the rights to rent that movie. You got one company, Netflix, right, giving the people, you know, that have the right to show this movie. And the thing is that they don't, like, it's in the Netflix. If you ever tried to sell anything online, you know, it's like, it's just in there with all the other stuff that everyone else is selling online. And it's very, very hard for someone to find anything online. So it's like, you basically go online and it's like, what you see is, what you find is the thing that just pops up. And you see like the first 10 things that pop up, and that's all you basically see. But in order to see the rest of that stuff, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll. And so if you're looking for a movie, you don't want to like scroll for an hour and like before you find anything, you know? You're probably gonna scroll for the first 10, 20, or 30 movies and then go, okay, I'll watch this one. Or you're gonna just like get the one that's popular. Like on Netflix is like popular movies, trending movies. And they show you like 20 or 30 popular movies at the time, or trending movies at the time. You know, there's way more than 20 or 30 movies that are good on Netflix or not on Netflix, but that are out there. However, Netflix is only gonna show you 20 or 30 as the popular ones. So usually people will just like browse through the popular ones, the trending ones, and pick one of those. Because otherwise, if you ever like browse through category and just try watching any of those, they're horrible. They're really bad, you know. And I don't know. I don't know why they're so bad, but it wasn't like that when there were video stores. You know, it was just, there was more of a selection, and people would know that if they made a movie and it sucked on in the theater and no one wanted to watch it, or the critics didn't like it and it just went through without making any money, they'd be okay because they'd still be able to rent it through the video stores, you know. But now it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, by the way, Netflix has your movie. It's like, oh, okay, great. Netflix has your movie, so what does that mean? It's like, how much are you actually making from one company that's showing your movies, and that's Netflix, you know? And just like iTunes has your, like, that's like saying Spotify has your song. You make like less than a penny per one person listening to that song. You make like 0.01 of a penny. It's like nothing. And in order to actually make any money from Spotify or any of those streaming services, you have to actually like have millions of people listening to that song every day just to make any decent money on it. So, you know, it's kind of the same with movies, I guess. You need like Netflix you need tons of views. And unless Netflix promotes it and shows it to people as a, you know, as something that they're promoting, one of the 30 movies or like 50 or 100 movies that they're promoting at the time, it's very, very hard for anybody to even know that any movie's there, whether it's good or not. It's impossible. It's very difficult to know it's there. It's very difficult to browse. It's very difficult to look at the stuff. I mean, it's easy to like click on it and see if you like it or not, and then click off of it if you don't like it, you know, but it's hard to find anything. And for some reason, you know, bad movies used to be good. Like they were so bad they were good, and now bad movies are just really, really bad. And it's just like boring, and it's just horribly done and boring, and like you don't even want to watch it, you know? And so that's the thing. So I think that the reason that there aren't any good movies, any good fantasy movies or anything like that, is, I mean, there are some, but they're not like, you know, they're not there. Like either they're meant for Netflix, like they're meant for Netflix, they're done by Netflix, or they're meant for big theaters, right? And if it's not Netflix or big theaters, There's no movies. So where are all the other people that's not in big Hollywood, you know, like who are making movies? Like, where are their movies? They're gone. And they used to be good, and they were good, and that's because people don't make any money through movies anymore. If it's not gonna make money in the theater, and it's not gonna make money on Netflix, it's not even gonna be around. Like, no one's gonna know it's there. No one's gonna circulate the movie for anyone. So yeah. So I think that's why that there's kind of like not a lot of really good fantasy movies around, or just like decent movies or whatever, fantasy thriller, you know, whatever fun like movies that were around, they're not there. And I think that's because the systems have changed and there's no more video store, you know. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thanks for watching the video. Check out some of my other videos if you want. And I will see you guys in another video later. Oh, and like and subscribe. Thanks. Later.